Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're taking a deep dive into something that piqued our curiosity, the world of gamekeeping.
Oh, yeah, this is going to be good.
We've got a whole stack of resources from RoleCatcher.com.
Right, RoleCatcher.
And honestly, it's way more than just, walks in the woods.
Yeah, it's not just strolling around with a shotgun.
Okay, so let's unpack this. How does RoleCatcher actually define gamekeeper?
So they call it meticulous conservation and management of wildlife and their habitats. But the part that jumps out is that whole maintaining the delicate balance of the ecosystem bit.
It's a whole ecosystem thing.
Exactly. It's not just about making sure there are enough deer for hunting season.
Right. It's not just, oh, let's get more deer.
Exactly. Like, think about something like soil composition.
Okay.
That's something a gamekeeper needs to know, inside and out.
Wow, so it's a lot more scientific than people might think.
Oh, absolutely. To make sure the right plants can grow, which then affects the insects, and then the birds that eat those insects. It's a whole chain reaction.
It's all connected.
Totally.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So the career guide also mentions tasks like monitoring animal populations and implementing these conservation plans. Is that where the real detective work comes in?
100%. Like, imagine you're trying to track, let's say, a rare bird. You're not just counting them on your fingers.
No, you need more than your fingers for this.
You might be using radio telemetry or analyzing habitat data or figuring out their migration patterns.
So we're talking serious biology, ecology, that kind of thing.
Yeah, you got to have a solid foundation in that stuff, no question. And then the whole design part comes into play with stuff like
Like what?
like predator control, for example. But it's not about just getting rid of predators altogether.
Right, you're not just going out there eliminating.
No, it's all about managing their numbers so that everything stays balanced within the ecosystem.
So you're making these huge judgment calls, but based on real scientific data. That's a lot of responsibility.
It really is. What a gamekeeper decides can directly impact whether the whole ecosystem thrives or not in the long run. And get this, some gamekeepers actually get their research published.
No way, really?
Yeah.
So they're contributing to, actual scientific knowledge.
It's pretty cool. It's not unheard of for a gamekeeper to end up in a scientific journal because they have that unique on-the-ground perspective.
Okay, this is officially way cooler than I thought, but let's be real for a sec. RoleCatcher also lists the, shall we say, challenges of this career path.
Oh, yeah, the great outdoors isn't always so glamorous, right?
Right. Like, they mention working in really harsh weather, dealing with physical demands, even dangerous situations. What exactly are we talking about there?
Well, it depends a lot on where you are. You could be dealing with, I don't know, venomous snakes one day, maybe a wild boar the next.
Oh, wow. So it's not for the faint of heart.
No, you got to be comfortable with a little bit of risk, that's for sure.
Okay. What about these mechanical skills they mention? That seems a little out of left field for someone who's like a wildlife expert.
Right. I see what you mean. But think about it. You're often working in the middle of nowhere. And if something breaks...
You gotta know how to fix it.
Exactly. Imagine a fence goes down miles from the nearest road. Or you need to, rig something up for a specific task. You got to be resourceful.
You're like a one-person wilderness repair crew.
Kind of, yeah. You need to be able to handle whatever comes up. But it's not all about fixing fences and, wrestling bears. There's a whole other side to it, too.
Right, because you're also dealing with data analysis and strategic planning and all that.
Exactly. And the more you climb that career ladder, the more that stuff comes into play.
Okay, so speaking of the career ladder, RoleCatcher talks about, starting out and then working your way up to senior gamekeeper.
Right.
And, obviously the responsibilities get bigger, you're managing teams, but what does that actually look like day to day?
Well, let's say you've been doing this for a while, right? You're not just following someone else's lead anymore. You are the lead.
You're calling the shot.
Exactly. You're managing a whole team. You're figuring out where the resources go, and you're basically responsible for this chunk of land and making sure it stays healthy for the long haul.
Wow, okay, so paint me a picture. It's like 7:00 a.m., what are you doing?
Well, your morning might start with, I don't know, checking out footage from those camera traps you set up to track wildlife.
Oh yeah, those are cool.
Right. You analyze the footage, you try to spot any patterns, and that helps you figure out how to manage the habitat or maybe what to do about certain predators.
It's amazing how much tech is involved in this, even though it seems like such an old-school profession.
Oh, totally. Then in the afternoon, maybe you're leading a team on a habitat restoration project.
Okay.
So using what you know about plants and soil science and all that to create the perfect environment for, whatever species you're focused on.
You're not just planting trees, you're basically engineering this whole ecosystem.
Right, and seeing that direct impact on the land, that's got to be really rewarding.
Yeah, that's gotta feel good.
Definitely. But, you know, it's not always smooth sailing. There are always curveballs.
Oh, I bet.
Like you could have a disease outbreak or an invasive species popping up where it shouldn't be,
Oh, right. Those are a nightmare.
or even just disagreements with neighboring landowners.
Oh, right, because RoleCatcher did mention working with landowners a lot.
Right, because you're often dealing with folks who might have different priorities, different ways of seeing things when it comes to managing the land.
So how do you handle that?
Well, a lot of it is just communication. You
Yeah.
know, you got to explain why these conservation measures are so important, even if the landowner is more focused on like how much timber they could harvest or how much crops they can yield.
So you need serious diplomacy skills.
Oh, for sure. Building relationships is key. Finding that common ground so everyone can reach their goals.
It's fascinating how multifaceted this is.
Yeah.
You're a scientist, you're a manager, you're a diplomat.
Oh, yeah.
It takes a certain kind of person to pull it off, that's for sure. But speaking of finding the right career path, I'm curious about what else RoleCatcher offers. Do they have like actual tools to help someone get into this field?
Yeah, definitely.
Because, I mean, you might think, okay, working in nature, it's going to be this very traditional job
That's
search.
right, like word of mouth or something.
Exactly. But RoleCatcher actually brings it into like the 21st century.
Interesting. How so?
Well, they have this cool thing called Get Discovered. It's like a professional networking platform, but specifically for this field.
Okay.
So employers can search for candidates based on their skills and experience.
Wow. So you're not just hoping your resume ends up on the right desk.
Exactly. It's proactive.
Right.
And it just highlights how, even for a field like this that we think of as being offline, having a strong online presence is so key these days.
Absolutely. Especially in this day and age. It's all about getting yourself out there.
Right. And it's not just about being visible. RoleCatcher also talks about skills assessment.
Which is huge,
Yeah.
right? Because it's one thing to say, oh, I love nature.
Yeah.
But you need to show you've got the skills to pay the bills.
Exactly. And RoleCatcher actually breaks down those core skills needed for different roles.
Like that whole mechanical skills example we talked about.
Yep. It's all about connecting the dots between what you're good at and what this job actually requires. And they even offer help with building your resume, interview prep, like the whole 9 yards.
That's really helpful.
Right. But, all this talk about the resources RoleCatcher offers has got me thinking about something we touched on earlier. That whole thing about conservation and private interests and public access to nature.
Good tricky balance, that's for sure.
Right. Like, we've talked about the science, the practical skills, even how to work with landowners. But at the end of the day, a gamekeeper is working within this larger system where all these forces are colliding.
And that's where things can get really complicated.
It's like you're not just managing the land, you're managing people's relationships with it.
100%, yeah. It's like imagine you've got a landowner who wants to, I don't know, maximize their profits from cutting down trees, but then you've got conservationists saying, hold on, those old-growth forests are super important for endangered species.
Right. It's a tough spot to be in.
For sure. And then you add in the fact that people want to actually enjoy these natural spaces. They want to hike, they want to explore.
It's like, where does everyone get to fit in?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's where gamekeepers come in. They're the ones trying to find solutions that work for the ecosystem and the people who depend on it.
So it's not just about knowing the science, it's about knowing how to talk to people, how to find compromises.
Oh, absolutely. You need to be a good communicator, a good negotiator, a good problem solver. It's a lot.
Yeah, it sounds like it takes a special kind of person, someone who really gets the human side of things, too.
Totally. Because at the end of the day, conservation isn't just about protecting nature. It's about figuring out how we fit into that picture.
It's about coexisting.
Exactly.
Well, this has been incredibly eye-opening. Big thanks to RoleCatcher.com for the awesome resources. Seriously, if you're thinking about a career in gamekeeping, or even if you're just curious, go check them out. But as you're learning about this field, think about this. How do we balance our desire for, progress and economic growth with protecting the environment? It's a question we all have to grapple with.
It really is. It's about finding that sustainable path forward.
Absolutely. And on that note, we'll wrap up this deep dive. Until next time, keep those brains engaged, and we'll see you on the next one.